So I went to Loughborough University to study fine art.
Hmm.
But Loughborough University is primarily known for its sports, and it's a sport. It's tend to be a sports uni, but it's very good for its art as well. So I
Hmm.
kind of picked up triathlon for a bit of fun in the tri club to keep fit, really. So I used to swim when I was younger, so I'd pick up swimming again. Hadn't swam for 6 years, and then see, just got fit very quick. I suppose because I had a big engine from swimming.
Yeah.
Um, and before I knew it, I was doing time trials to get onto the world class performance program, or the potential performance program, they called it back then.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre. If you're active at all, whether you're running or simply out walking for the day, you've probably experienced one of the number one problems that active people have, and that's chafing. Solpre's all-new, all-natural anti-chafe balm solves that problem while feeding your skin the vital nutrients it needs to be healthy. If you'd like to stop chafing once and for all and treat your body right, go to solpri.com to check out the anti-chafe balm today. That's SOLPRI.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guest today is a former pro triathlete who raced ITU with the British Triathlon team. She's also an artist. If you are not on the YouTube version of the show, if you're on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere that's just audio, for this one in particular, you definitely have to go to YouTube, youtube.com/Solpri. That's SOLPRI. And join us so you can see all of her very awesome work behind her. Welcome to the show, Vanessa Raw.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And, it's one of those things where, like, we're both working in different time zones. I do this from time to time where it's like, you're probably going to be going off to dinner, and I've just got done with like my swim in the morning. I probably still got a little bit of like the raccoon eyes from my goggles going on.
Nice.
So it's always nice to like be able to figure out a time when we can get together, even though we're in very very different places for our days. So we were talking before we got going. You couldn't quite remember when you had started triathlon. Obviously, you're retired now, but tell me about getting into it, if you can remember. Like, why did you get into it? How did that all kind of get started?
So I went to Loughborough University to study fine art.
Mm-hmm.
But Loughborough University is primarily known for its sports, and it's a sport. It's tend to be a sports uni, but it's very good for its art as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of picked up triathlon for a bit of fun in the tri club to keep fit, really. So I used to swim when I was younger, so I'd pick up swimming again. Hadn't swam for 6 years, and then just got fit very quick. I suppose because I had a big engine from swimming.
Yeah.
Um, and before I knew it, I was doing time trials to get onto the world class performance program, or the potential performance program, they called it back then. And and I got on, and then I just went from there, and it all got very serious very quick. Um, I was allowed to do my degree over 6 years, which was useful, um, and probably kept me sane actually as well. So it was somewhere I could actually paint whilst I
Yeah.
was like, but, and I was, and then I retired in 2015, 2016. That one's a bit hazy, I'm not sure. Yeah, so I started in like 2005, basically.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny when it's like when you stop. Did you continue racing or training afterwards, or was it just like altogether stop, like just letting it go, not worried about it anymore?
Actually, it was, I think I got trying to remember, but I got something that I think it was the flu, something that stopped me completely for 3 months.
Okay.
Flu and injury, like a bad injury, stress fracture or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I went to total zero, and I think that was quite good because it kind of like reset what the norm is.
Yeah.
Then when I was allowed to just do 45 minutes of exercise a day, felt completely normal
Yeah.
and completely acceptable. And I kind of realized actually that I trained like a maniac to be good at triathlon, even though I think a lot of people probably thought I was training that hard for other reasons, and probably and used to say, oh, you'd never be able to stop exercising like the way you do. And I was like, well, I do it to be good for the triathlon. And now I just put the energy and that determination that I have into my art.
Yeah.
So I guess most people don't have the other thing that they're as passionate or more passionate about. Like for me, triathlon was always second. My art was always first.
Yeah.
And triathlon kind of, I guess, got in the way for a while, actually. I mean, it was good, but it was hard. It was hard, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm back on it with mixed feelings still.
So was it a matter of like, you just found yourself being so good at it so quickly that it's like, let's see where this goes?
It was kind of like that feeling where you feel like you should be doing it because you've obviously got talent for it, and so you think, I can't waste that. I have to be doing this. I should be fulfilling my potential. And then I've been told I have like crazy high VO2 max. I've got all this potential that I need to fulfill, but I keep getting injured because my body can't keep up with the rate of my engine.
Yeah.
I think that's probably quite typical for swimmers, ex-swimmers. And so just on this constant cycle of like the first 2 years were amazing because there was no expectation and I did well really quick. And then after that, as soon as I was getting injured, and at that point I had sponsors and managers and stuff and people to keep happy.
Yeah.
As soon as I was getting injured, it was just like this, constant cycle of disappointment. It was, I don't think I ever did a race after the first 2 years where there wasn't something wrong when I stood on that start line. Like my best year was 2006, and I'd only been training a year.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And after that, I was starting the start line defeated because I knew I was injured or unwell or unfit.
So what? Yeah. I mean, so 2006 I mean, you're basically almost 10 years, 10 years after that point, you continue racing, like, and that there's always something going wrong or you're always battling injuries. And I think that's more common than we like to talk about. And you probably, spoke with the girls and maybe got more of an insight than I would, certainly. But what keeps driving you to come back to the start line if it's just a constant struggle of, okay, this isn't quite right today, or that's not, how do you keep going, or why do you keep going?
You're cutting out a bit there, but
okay.
I think I got what you said.
Yeah.
What keeps me wanting to get onto the start line if it's a constant? Yeah. I guess the reason why I kept going on the start line was pressure from sponsors that I had and coaches that I had to get on the start line. And the reason why I kept training every day, that was more from like with this hope that I would get every single. I had this injury that went on for 7 years, and I'd wake up every day trying to find out the answer for it. It was stupid. It was just like this twisted pelvis. But I went from being super strong on the bike. It was going to be domestique in the Olympics, and I felt like there was a point where I don't know. I just felt really like the best I've ever felt on the bike. This was like 2009 sort of time, 2010, and then I had a crash, and it was a really, really like small. I barely recognized it as a crash, but I knocked something out of place. And then from then on, I then sat twisted on the bike and felt like I was only riding with one leg. And that went on for the rest of my triathlon career. I never got it sorted, and I've still got issues with it now. And ultimately, that's what made me stop, because things like stress fractures, it's only going to be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and you come back from it. But things like this, it was affecting my power
Mm-hmm.
It felt like I was half the amount of power because it felt like I was riding with one leg, and it was so uncomfortable, and I couldn't run off it without pain in my back and my back cramping and God knows what. And every day I would get into the gym and just try and look at it afresh, like a new problem. What is going wrong? What is happening? Because no physios, no one had the answer.
Mm-hmm.
No one could tell me what was wrong. And in the end, it made me think that it was all in your head. Like I was going mad, and people just complete, like people just say it was in your head, even though someone knew. Like I remember Mark Jenkins, you know Helen Jenkins, yeah.
Yeah.
He had a look at me on the bike. He was like, Vanessa, why are you sitting off the side? I was like, I know. Yeah, thank you for acknowledging it. Thanks someone acknowledging this. I don't know, and no one could tell me why, and no one could tell me why that it was continuing to be twisted, and there's nothing apparently that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just suppose I would just determination that I'd find the answer that day, or
Yeah.
something would happen today, or that, and then everything would be so much better. I suppose it's just that hope, isn't it? The optimism. I am
Yeah.
actually an optimistic person. I guess I've got to be, but it certainly tests you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost not surprising to me that you said a lot of people said it's in your head. Like it's not actually, because there's this culture of like just push harder, like it'll be fine, all performance, and then. But the thing that gets me is that when you talk to like a coach or somebody or an athlete that's been through it, it's like, how can you doubt somebody, like in your case, that knows their body so well? You push it all the time, like you're intimately familiar with how your body feels, and if you
Yeah.
say it's off, like believe that person, even if you can't figure it out.
Uh,
We can't experience what you experienced. Only you experience your own body. So it's like, who am I to say? Like, it boggles my mind that there's not better awareness, that you would know better that there's something wrong with you, even if we can't identify it.
I know. It's I hope things have changed, and I think they have changed a lot. I used to think that the way people coached, it was like a one size fits all. Like they just
Yeah.
assumed that all athletes needed pushing in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I was certainly an athlete that needed holding back. Um, I was probably an athlete who would just keep going, 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 going until I don't know, collapsed and died. I
Mm-hmm.
needed someone to say, "Look, no, something's wrong. You've got to stop." Um, so, and I think my last coach recognized that right at the end, but at that point, I decided to quit, and he realized that actually, yeah, I was not an athlete who needed to be tested and pushed and pushed and pushed like some athletes needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had like, as well as all these injuries, I had ongoing health problems with my thyroid and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and disease, and again with that, you know, they just presume, oh well, she's still going, she's still pushing hard. There's obviously nothing wrong with her, and I'm not going to keep shouting, please help me, someone help me. I'm just going to try and keep going, and just do my best. But you know, you end up feeling like you feel like screaming for help at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually realize, no one's going to help you. The only person that's going to help you is yourself. And
Yeah.
I started studying functional medicine. And that changed my life, actually.
Yeah. See, just hearing all that, I wish. So my guest last week, I was telling you before we kind of got going, was Scott Johnston, and author of the Uphill Athlete. So, but we were talking about, you know, people like you and the other pros, especially if I had to put money on it, more of them are going to be like you and don't need to be pushed than need to be pushed. Like you're already this hyper type A, like you're going to push yourself to the limit. And he always, what he mentioned, especially in his like Olympic athletes, is like if he noticed that they were peaking too soon or they become at risk of injury, he would have to say, no, we're not training. We're going back to base. We're doing like braking because this is going to be an issue, and like recognizing that stuff early on. So obviously you can't go back. I wish somebody like Scott had been in your corner to
I needed that sort of
recognize that.
I definitely didn't have that coach ever in my whole sporting career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it maybe it's a matter of like, I don't know how many coaches are former athletes. There are some. I don't know if you're familiar with Barb Lindquist, but so she would have retired. She raced in the 2004 Olympics, so she would have retired soon around the time you were starting your pro career. But so she's a former pro and she does coach now. So, and she's pretty laid back, but I almost think maybe I would be curious to see the number of coaches that didn't have a pro career, and it's their internal drive of wanting to see their athletes succeed because they didn't, if that affects that like pushing mentality.
Yeah, probably.
So
yeah.
So I think you mentioned studying functional medicine after or something.
So when after Loughborough, I moved to London.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got a random call from Elton John's manager, saying, "Oh, I'd like to look at your art." And at this point, I was like, before this happened, the day before this happened, I'd actually said, right, the next opportunity that comes along, I'm saying yes to.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do the triathlon anymore. This was like 2011. And anyway, he rang and he said, "I would like to talk to you out. Come down for Elton John's party, and we'll discuss it." I'm like, okay. So I go down to London, and he persuades me to keep going with triathlon. That he'll get me a coach, he'll get me sponsors, he'll get me somewhere to stay. I should move down to London. He'll help me with art, and let's try and go to the 2012 Olympics. I'm like, I haven't run for 9 months. I'm not sure about 2012 Olympics, but I'll give it a go. And yeah, so I mean, it was really good. And how could I say no to that opportunity? So I went down to London, and I got all those things. The coach, some sponsors, and was doing my art in this. I got a big kind of flat, and I was doing my art in the open plan living room. So it was like the dream life for me, being able to manage everything together. But I guess because of not much time, and I was already not great with my thyroid, and adrenals were pretty screwed as well. Anyway, I pushed it way too hard, too quick, because we were in a rush to try and qualify.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting, I guess that you don't call it adrenal fatigue, do you? But adrenal insufficiency.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a shot on my ass, and you're meant to produce it's like you're meant to produce ACTH in response to that, to show you what sort of adrenal output you have. And I had like pretty much zero. He's like, oh, like, yeah. I don't know how you're still actually moving right now. And I was barely moving. I was dragging my feet. I'd just been trying to get points for the Olympics, and finishing the race and just collapsing straight away. Somehow you get through the race, and then I was just drained of all my energy, and I couldn't actually walk after the race. And this has happened, like, actually just thinking of it now, I know why. Back then I was like, how could I do a race and then now I can't walk? And I think that's what a lot of people thought of me. Oh, she's just faking it, that sort of thing. I presume people just thought I was just making all this up, but actually it was genuinely fucked. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I did that bit. So I did all that, and so then I changed coaches. I got a new coach, Tom Bennett. He really helped me for the first time be able to run pain-free, and first time since I was a child. By breaking down my run form and starting again, and it was absolutely amazing. Started getting injured less, my run started improving, and at the same time met Tamsin Lewis. She's she's a functional medicine doctor basically, and she's a ex long distance athlete, pro long distance athlete. She did it pro for a bit, but she's a really good functional medicine doctor. And I know she kind of helped me with my health. She could see I was struggling with different things and was getting weird symptoms and like dizziness, which now I'm thinking that was obviously to do with the adrenals. And so I started studying everything, and I got on and off antidepressants. I mean, I was a complete mess, like the long short of it. I hit rock bottom and managed to come back from that. But I had to really, I stopped with the management company and just was doing long distance this time. So I've missed that bit out. I was doing long distance stuff, and that helped a bit. And I was definitely better at long distance, but still I had this ongoing issue with my pelvis, and I couldn't run off because my back was so screwed. So I was performing a training, but I just couldn't run off a half Ironman bike or an Ironman bike. It was just too painful, nerve wise and stuff. So it was all very frustrating. And I tried for a while until then I quit in 2016. But yes, I quit triathlon thinking that would sort out my health issues with the thyroid and autoimmunity as well, but it didn't, not immediately. Obviously, I'm asking less from my body, but I was quite surprised that, I'm still got issues. And I guess as well, when you're really fit and you have like this huge amount of mitochondria and fitness, that kind of disguises a lot of issues, I think. And then when you suddenly stop, and I didn't train for 3 months because I can't even remember now, illness or injury. I also had my ankles done, so I couldn't train for 6 months when I had those reconstructed. Then you suddenly realize it kind of like highlights all the kind of problems that you do have. And yeah, so I don't know how much detail you want me to go into functional medicine stuff, or if it's really boring to people, but yeah, I managed to get on top of my thyroid issues that suppose, like with T3, actually T3 only. I don't know, this can be an issue for a lot of people. A lot of people go on to normal thyroxine, they're given levothyroxine, they're told that your results are all fine now, you should be feeling much better. And the way I felt was, well, no, I still feel just as underactive as I ever did. And they're like, well, no, your results are saying you're fine. I'm like, well, no, I feel awful. And then you kind of learn that actually what's kind of pumping around in the blood in terms of thyroxine it's not necessarily a reflection of what's getting in the cell, and especially if you're adrenally fatigued or insufficient. So you haven't got enough cortisol to take the thyroid into the cell. And I ended up finding out about T3 only therapy, and it changed my life. I mean, my brain switched on. I could sleep for the first time in 15 years. I wasn't depressed anymore. So that's where I am now. But although having said that, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to do this podcast today, because I, in the last month, got really underactive. I haven't been stable for 2 years. Had the test result and a few days ago, and so underactive that Tamsin, who took my blood, didn't even believe the result. It was like, I can't believe it, we'll have to do this again, I don't believe it. It turns out what we're assuming is the medication that my last batch medication contained no medication. So
how does that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying a new brand now, so something weird. Well, that's what we're hoping. Either that, or there's something even more complicated going on. We're hoping it's just the medication.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry, that was really boring. You can edit that
No,
out.
no, you're fine. Well, I mean, everybody's got their story. It's just like the thing that I kind of wanted to tease you about, but is, you mentioned being an optimist,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's evident in your story, like there's so many things you've gone through, but just, I wanted to tease you about both triathlon and being an artist. Both are, at least in my opinion, like notoriously hard ways to make a living. Yet,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, like all the issues, there's just something like I wonder sometimes if people like yourself, if there's just something, if there's something genetic, like what is it that makes you continue to just to get up every day and just keep trudging forward, even if like everything's shit and you're not sure where the light at the end of the tunnel is. You're just like, all right, like keep going, and you don't. It, and obviously, it's hard to sum up 15 years of experience in one conversation. I'm sure there were times when you were probably felt crushed, um, but somehow you continue going forward. So I just, on a personal level, I wonder what that is. Is that just the human spirit? What is it that keeps people like you moving forward despite all the issues? I guess.
Well, I suppose always have had that internal drive. I was described as I don't described or what do they say? Like you're at the time I was a functional depressive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great, thanks for that. Like, what to do that? Um, and then they just pump in more medication. So I
Yeah.
would get up with this mission that felt like I had to do. And I suppose that's what kept me driving. But right now, I mean, I can say I am a totally different person. I'm super happy because I feel like I'm on the right path and doing what I'm meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose there's that optimism that, that you are on the right path. Whereas, yeah, I guess I didn't have that before. I felt like I was, but I was waiting for it. I was like, I just get this out of the way. I've just got to perform quickly and get it out of the way, finish it, put it to bed. And the longer that performance didn't happen, I was like, oh, another year, just one more year, one more year. But yeah, just yeah, so much better now. And I suppose I do also and not to get kind of corny or anything, but I do believe in something else, and I think that has really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Like some sort of spiritual element. I don't know, believing in that there is, like I've read a lot of self-help books through the years, and I suppose what you say more kind of, I don't know, have you heard of Eckhart Tolle?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, like this reading his books, things like that. That's really, really helped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in so with the so Solpri we make skincare, body care products for athletes, and I try to make all the products evidence based. But then on a personal level, like I still kind of have feelings like you do at times, um, where it's like I, I don't go to church. I'm not particularly religious, but there's just feels like there's a gravity to what's happening in your life where you're being pushed or pulled in a certain direction, and it's like you have the opportunity to continue to fight against it, or you can just go with the flow and like allow that gravity to take you in that direction instead of saying I think although you on a much higher level, kind of in a similar case, I was trying to be a pro triathlete for a long time, and I crashed and broke my collarbone, had surgery, and so like the gravity kind of took me away from that back towards like doing the things that maybe I should be doing, the businesses, and I recently like started composing music and
Wow.
back to like that kind of stuff, and it, it's still training, but like feel like you said where you are now, feel happier and like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I can
Yeah.
certainly identify with that idea that maybe there's something, and I always kind of think of it in this case is like even if there isn't anything, if that's how you feel, you're not hurting anybody, and it makes you happy, then what does it matter?
Yeah. Exactly. I think as well, it like when you find like that absolute true joy in the moment, that is being in the flow, isn't it? And the more
Right.
times you have that in the day, the happier you are. Like I can genuinely feel like there's at least once a day I can get into that complete euphoria moment. We're in the flow, either painting, or I tend to run to the studio and back. That's my way of getting here. And it's only 3 or 4K, but it's enough to get that kind of flow feeling if I'm not too unfit. Otherwise, it's not a flow feeling at all.
Right.
Sometimes I run the long way here, which is like 8K, and if I'm trying to get fit. Yeah, and I think it's like just really relishing in those moments of complete flow state, which is so common for anyone who's creative or who does sport,
I kind of have a goal nowadays, where I will say I'm a little bit back and forth at times, where I get real, I'll say manic. I don't mean that in a clinical sense, but real manic about like I've got to work harder and make the business go faster, and like just that same A-type sport personality where you're like just push, push, push. But I recently stepped back after speaking with Ezra Firestone several episodes ago. He's a big business guy, does martial arts, and I've kind of made it a goal of like every single day I have to do something that I think is fun or that brings joy to my life. Doesn't matter whether it's 5 minutes or 2 hours, just I have to do something. And that, at least for the last few weeks, has like kept me grounded to like chill out. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's good. And yeah, it's funny you say that as well, though, because those euphoric moments for me are often the moments where I'm like full speed.
Okay.
It's like, and I suppose probably really high dopamine, probably either had too much coffee or I don't know. There's just it's really hard to differentiate whatever that was, between being totally in the moment and really with really high dopamine, so which is probably it's probably overly stimulated, but it feels good. And so maybe that is the athlete in me, but actually, I don't know. Yeah, I can. I don't know. It's over there. Are psychedelics legal over there?
No. Well, I think Colorado is getting ready to legalize if they haven't. Marijuana's legal in a number of states, but not federally. It's kind of a mixed bag at the moment.
Yeah, psychedelics are not legal over here.
Yeah.
So careful what I say. But I have eaten some truffles, let's just say. And let's go and say I picked some mushrooms from Richmond Park. And they are amazing for A, depression, B, for connecting, like making new neural pathways in your brain. After reading A Mind of Your Own, it's a book by Michael Pollan, I think.
Okay, I've read some of his other stuff.
Yeah, and like Ben Greenfield. Yeah, he's big into psychedelics, and he takes little bit every 3 days, or
Like
microdosing.
Yeah.
Although probably a good trip is probably life changing, but I'm just talking about microdosing now. It's changed my brain this year, and I actually think that's probably what's made me not really know that I was so underactive, because my brain was so changed in a positive way that usually I would have picked up being so underactive through my mood dropping. And I think even though I obviously had less energy, I just like, oh well, I need to do my art anyway. I don't need energy. I'll just do my art. I don't need to be running. Also had COVID at the beginning of March, so I thought it was related to that. And but I actually think that because my brain's actually working better, despite being so underactive, yeah, I didn't notice it. But I'm also happier. I think quicker. Um, I've started to put things together that I wouldn't usually put together, and start to work out problems that I wouldn't have been able to work out before. And creativity wise, it's great. Although I don't feel like I'm sleeping very well at the moment, probably because I am so interactive. I've had a lot of terps, been breathing in terps all day. That's my excuse. But yeah, so I don't know how I got onto that conversation, but in terms of,
What?
I think they're the way forward for mental health.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to me, so which you don't know, but I get down rabbit holes very easily. But so thinking about, I mean, now like internally, you felt the difference between kind of where you are and then where you were. Can you think of is there a way to communicate the after state to the person you were before? Do you know what I mean? Like
No.
is there a way? So say you had to go back in time and convince yourself that this is a good idea, that your brain's going to change and that you're going to feel better. Is there a way to talk to yourself and say, like, you need to realize this isn't normal?
Yeah. Um, yeah, as I think I knew at the time, it definitely wasn't normal,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know there was a way out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like yeah, at the time, I suppose I was saying this to my partner actually the other day, that it's like, even just within the space of this week, when I found out I was so underactive, and I was like, oh gosh, that explains it. And then I took some old T4 medication, which I usually don't tolerate very well. Um, and I think it was and that partly caused some of the depression. And I took some of that, and I was like a bit nervous about taking some, so it just took a little bit, and I automatically felt so much better. Um, and I think it's just purely because I had some thyroid in the brain, whereas before I just didn't have anything going on, so I had some at least. And so that day, and I'd slept well, I slept better the night before, and so I felt like, oh yeah, who needs those tests? Those tests are obviously wrong. I feel amazing. Life's amazing. And then that night, I was so hyper. That night, I didn't even sleep. I woke up in the morning, absolutely screwed. I felt like, oh no, feeling everything I had before. With all, this medication is just bringing everything back. I can't, what I'm going to do. I haven't got anything else. The world's going to end, and I have to keep reminding myself, and remember what you were like yesterday. But I'm so kind of reactionary, and so in the now, it's very hard. It's hard to kind of foresee how you're going to be when you are, like, even when I'm feeling really good, I just feel like I'm going to be like that forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely forget about the way I used to feel. Yeah.
That's got to be tough, where it's like that almost that feeling of being in the moment is trapping in a way. You
Yeah.
forget that, oh, I felt different, or I might feel different later.
Yeah, Eckhart Tolle. What do you say about that?
So, before we get too deep down this rabbit hole, I don't want to run out of time. Tell me about the art. When I was looking at your website, it seems like you mostly work on large canvas. Like, you're not going to sit down with like an 8x10. Well, I guess that's in inches. I don't know what it is in centimeters. You're not going to sit down with a paper-sized piece of canvas. It seems
I
like you're
struggle.
almost all large
Yeah,
stuff.
pretty big. I mean, I don't know if I can move this
Yeah,
easel.
we can try to do a walk around if you're up for it.
I've got it like that's. I don't know what that is. 7 foot something by 4 foot, I think. I mean, and then this self portrait. You wouldn't believe how many times I've had to repaint this bloody thing for a competition. Otherwise, I wouldn't be painting myself. But this has basically. I should do the video of the different faces.
Uh-huh.
So this is a massive kind of. I let myself just paint it every day, depending on how I felt about myself and my mood. So it's had about 30 different faces underneath that.
Okay.
And it's crazy how different every single one is.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think part of the art of that, I might hand in the video,
Mm-hmm.
like because it's meant to be like a self-portrait competition, you see, for
Yeah.
just a chance over um, lockdown. And then this is another one, so I probably should have taken the phone off the stand. So, but yeah, this is also 6 foot. And then the rest I have like I'm going to take it off. Sorry. And then I also have about 30 big ones, or 30 in total, and then about 20 big ones stacked up.
Stacked. Yeah.
That's one there, look. And then I have put loads of tiny little things on the wall with an aim to painting on them, but I still haven't painted on them.
So is there any reason that you have to go big? Is it?
I suppose I kind of feel it's really hard to put the energy you're feeling into a small painting.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to put on the music loud and swing your arms around with the rhythm of the music onto a tiny little piece of paper or piece of board, but you can do it really easily with a 6 foot canvas.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that's
what are you listening to when you're painting?
all sorts. I go through phases depending on my mood. Like lately I've had to just take music with no voice,
Mm-hmm.
because it's easier to get into the flow with. But
Mm.
sometimes it's really high energy and nothing can phase me. I like to put on some like 90s dance music or something. Dance whilst I'm painting. But all sorts. I mean, I love anything really, apart from like heavy metal stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so this is the thing that always fascinates me about people that end up like really pursuing art. Is, I mean, you went to school for art, and it just, I, this is maybe I'm a party pooper because I guess so. I'll give you my history and my kind of
Yeah.
biases. I started college as a music composition major,
Oh,
and I switched majors. I'd been doing music theory for several years. I switched majors my second year, like halfway through my second year of college, because I was like, "There's no way I can make a living doing this." Like, I just got too practical, and
oh,
and and moved away from it. And like I told you, I'm now finally writing stuff, and bought a keyboard and software and all that kind of things I can do that with. So maybe it's my practical mind that goes, how do you decide I'm going to do this and like I'm gonna, actually make a go of it without, how do you get through those doubts, I guess?
yeah. Well, after I finished triathlon, I mean, I did like do loads of different things. I started studying fashion and different short courses, and then obviously I studied functional medicine. I did 2 courses in that, thinking I would be a health coach. And then I started writing up like health programs of business. It was called Protocol 8. Did that for 2 years, and this was all because I doubted that I could make a living completely with my art. And at the same time I was doing my art through the whole thing. And so again I was like, I put myself in exactly the same situation that I've been doing my whole life. Instead of focusing on one thing, I've hedged my bets. I've
Mm-hmm.
done things and spreading my focus. And and I guess you've probably got that type of mind too, that you're always looking for new things, and like you get enjoyment out of it. You want to keep learning new things, and you
Yep.
get into that, isn't there? And I love studying. Like I'd love to go back to uni and start studying something else. But then I just had to. This year it was like halfway through last year. I was like, if you want to be an artist, the only way is to really be successful as an artist is to completely 100% focus on it. And if you want to study something, study arts. Just learn as much as you can with art. Just yeah. And I'm just gonna it is tempting for me. Like I am looking at the things all the time, you know, but now I can start to feel like the benefits of focusing, and how much I'm improving from focusing now.
So give me a little bit more insight into like how does making a living work? Like I know one of my art teachers from high school, he's a clay artist, and he started getting, after he retired from teaching and he could just focus full time on his stuff, he started getting, national exhibits and all these kind of things. But he had such a tough time because he's got 3D works. People can't put them on the walls. They don't know where to put them. So it was very tough for him to sell pieces, especially with the amount of time it takes for his like very masterful pieces. I'll see if I have a link. I'll send it to you afterwards. But so how does that work for you? Do you do kind of the traditional route? We get into galleries and the galleries sell pieces, or how does that work for you?
Well, so far I've been selling like through the internet, and that's kind of what I was doing. But in this last half a year, I've been really trying to more experiment and get work together, like a body of work together that I can then go to a gallery with, or put my own exhibition on with. But yeah, it is really tough, and it's gonna be even worse now through COVID. Like people are not gonna have the money to spend on art, so we just have to make sure. I mean, I'm in a really good group here in the studio. There's a group of 4 or 5 of us, or more really, but 4 or 5 of us are really determined. And we're discussing how we're going to do group shows and do something special, I suppose. I mean, every artist thinks that, I guess, but we need to be thinking of what's like something different that's going to, catch the attention of people and the imagination, and just do what's genuine to us as well at the same time. Obviously, that's massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what else can we do? We just have to keep going. And then just hope.
That's fair. I think there's times when you there's this metaphor about stepping off a cliff and not being sure if you can fly. There's sometimes it feels like that. I do want to ask you about what you think about this. So there's this kind of notorious, and I think I'll be upfront, terrible idea, but there's this notorious idea about like, if you get to the point that you're commercially successful, you make a living from, selling your art, that somehow you become a sellout. You're no longer genuine. Do you have you dealt with that? Do you experience anybody kind of giving that kind of grief, or am I off base?
What have I experienced a sellout?
Well, have you experienced people, because you've sold pieces, right?
Yeah.
So have you had anybody like people that maybe are not doing as well be like, oh, well, she doesn't make real art anymore?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, yes, I have had that before. I went down the line of doing kind of celebrities for a bit, partly because I was managed by Elton John's company.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what contacts do you have? Like, who can I paint?
Yeah.
And it was fun, and I met a load of people, and most of them I didn't keep, but so Ben Kingsley bought his, and so that was good. He loved it. And there's a few that did, and I did manage to sell some, and some got painted over. But I remember at the time, and it certainly paid the rent, and it paid for triathlon and paid for lots of things. But I remember at the time, my cousin, who was a video artist and was like pure art, in his head, he said, "Oh, just made very demeaning comments, basically, oh, yeah, how are you going to get out of it?" I was like, "What?" like it was some awful chore that I was painting famous people and getting good money for it. Because he just didn't consider it art, I suppose. But I still think it's that as long as you're being genuine whilst you're painting, and you're being the flow. If you're on the flow, I feel like the flow state is without ego. And if you're without ego, then that's the genuine state. That's genuine, authentic work. So it's still the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely feel like I'm pushing my work. I wouldn't do that again. And I definitely feel like I'm pushing my work to a much better level now. Because I'm not, painting famous people and stuff. But I think, it was the time and the place for it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing I think about when it's like people will say, "Oh, you're a sellout," or this or that. Or it's like you said, if you're still being genuine to yourself, like I don't know if I guess you could say you're a sellout if you're just like doing reproductions and selling them on the street or something. But again, if that's something you want to do, there's such a broad definition. I just feel like you almost get that accusation if the things that make you unique as an artist become recognized and people identify with those things. Then it's like the people that haven't got that yet, then it's like jealousy, basically.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming from a good place if people say that.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a limitation or a cultural issue where people don't believe that, like, do you know what I mean if I say it's not a 0-sum game?
It's not a 0-second game.
Some.
Oh, a 0-sum game. No, not really.
So I'm talking about game theory, but basically the idea of a 0-sum game is if it's like triathlon is a 0-sum game. One person can win. If that person wins, everybody else loses. Yeah. I don't believe, especially in the creative space, that it's a 0-sum game. If you win, that doesn't mean that everybody else loses. It actually could make it easier because you're bringing like notoriety to the artist or a painting style or a group of people. Like,
it's very, very different, and that's why I love art in comparison to sport. It's so different. There's not that competitive feeling here at all. Everyone's supportive and encouraging people to, apart from my cousin, of course, but encouraging people to create amazing work and we talk about art all day, and we help feed each other with ideas, we help each other look at each other's art. It's such a different feeling. And I suppose that probably does happen with in some sporting environments, but as you say, there's only one winner at the end of the day, isn't there?
Yeah. So I because you have, I mean, I don't know how to describe your style because I'm just not versed enough in art to say it's like this or that, but I love it. I'm wondering like do you have a method for becoming inspired for pieces, or is it just this is what I'm going to paint today?
So I wouldn't even know how to describe my style, so yeah, don't worry about that. I guess there's a figurative element to it. But yeah, the way I'm pushing myself at the moment is basically to be as intuitive as possible, and so being in that kind of flow state for me is really important. To not be overthinking and to not be negatively judging it whilst I'm painting. But usually what ends up happening is it's very difficult to hold that flow state for a long time, and I end up kind of like coming in and out of like painting intuitively and then standing back from it, and then my ego and judgment is like looking at it and like, oh my god, what's that? And then I'm trying to redo things, and I get the little tiny paintbrushes out and try and like correct stuff, and then actually what all that does is it just starts to look not as good. It looks so much better when I have the big paintbrushes and I'm just going for it. But often in these latest paintings, I've got this kind of quite interesting push and pull. It's almost like different human psyches, like trying to take control. And then you've got the paint where the paint's almost more in control. It's quite interesting.
So as we're starting to run low on time, we'll jump back over to sport. So I'm asking everybody this year, I think might be particularly interesting from your perspective. I want to know what everybody thinks the purpose of sport is.
Push ourselves to see what we're capable of. Me personally, or in a human level.
Either.
To see what we're capable of. For me, I that's for me personally, but I'm pretty sure that's probably the case for, just to push the boundaries, and get into that euphoria moment. Yeah.
No, that's
Sorry.
good. That's good. This is one of those. It's not a trick question. There's no wrong answer. It's just it's so different for everybody. It's a question that fascinates me, especially because it relates to motivation. Like, why are we out there doing these things
Yeah.
that it doesn't really matter and that kind of thing. So,
I think inspiration. Sorry, just to add to that one really
go.
quick. Is I did used to question it my whole time as an athlete. Why am I doing this? It's so selfish. And try and find almost like a reason that I thought, why is it not selfish? And I was like, well, it does inspire people. When someone does something amazing, you are inspired by it. And there's so many top athletes out there that we all love to watch, and we feel like a huge connection with, don't we? And it's like everyone comes together, everyone's inspired, everyone's uplifted, and we need that in our life. So from that point of view, I think that's why we need to do sport and at that level.
Sounds good. Vanessa, if people want to see your art aside from our video, see what you're up to, follow you, where can they find you?
Probably Instagram's the best at the moment because I need to update my website. It's pretty poor at the moment, but Instagram at VK Raw.
Can you spell that?
V K then RAW.
Okay. Just because I was like, our audio was like freezing and stopping. So I just want to make sure that was correct. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Vanessa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really nice. Thank you.